we welcome our dear friend, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, and his message, Abundant Light and Grace.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everyone today?
Great.
So, since we know that the universe always says yes to everything, doesn't it serve us well to take some time to really think about what we're saying to the universe if we know the yes is what the response is going to be? However, there are a lot of things that go on that we buy into that we don't even realize we're buying into. For example, this little light of mine, I'm good. This little light? Now, it's easy to say, this little light of mine, and we get all riled up that we go there. But what are we affirming? This little light of mine. How can that light be little? If you are source itself, how do you have a little light? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little love. How can there be too little love? How is it possible to say, well, there's only this much source? Because that's what you're saying. When you say there's only this much love, well, source is love. God is love. Love in action. And if you say, love is, there's just not enough of, well, then there's not enough of joy. There's not enough source. There's not enough peace. There's not enoughness of whatever it is. There's not enough. Yes, says the universe. Yes, you're right. There isn't enough. Because by your own thoughts, by your own words, it is so. So Marianne Williamson, she has that famous prayer quote. And it says, it's not our darkness that most frightens us. It's our light. Is that why we buy into the light being small? Because it scares us. Is that why we buy into there's not enough love? Because if there was enough love, then I'd be charged with being that love. It's abundant. So do we buy into it and say there isn't enough of whatever? Because the moment I know that I buy into there is, I have to live that. To whom much is given, much is required. You can't be a king or a queen walking around the streets as a pauper. If you're royalty, then you walk as royalty. You talk as royalty. You expect to be treated as royalty. Do you? How often do we walk around knowing the truth of who and what we are? Do we walk around, 3 steps back. So, let's say, well, Buddha. We'll pick Buddha. How, once Siddhartha became awakened, how did Siddhartha see the world? I would venture to say that Siddhartha saw it as a gift. Now, yes, he understood this concept of there is suffering, but suffering is an illusion. Suffering exists because we buy into and we believe in this thing called suffering. I have not a doubt in my mind that if we wanted to, as a collective consciousness, to end this thing called active shooter, it would be gone. But we buy into the belief that says something about guns, something about the Constitution and our right to bear arms, and something about and something. We buy into it. Versus saying, no, not anymore. I understand that there was a time when, but not anymore. So let's talk about this thing called abundant light. Start there. And you'll see how it's going to tie in. What does it mean to say, be the light? Be a light unto the world. I would venture to say, I don't know because I haven't read them all, but I would venture to say that every spiritual book ever written, ever, in some way, shape, or form, references light. It may not call it that, but it references it. Every single one of them. But what does it mean to be a light worker? To be a light unto the world? We talk about it all the time. But how do you live that? There's the scientific reference of light, referencing the certain magnetic frequencies that your eyes register. Yeah. We got that. We can grasp that. We can measure that. It's a science that we can measure. But don't we practice religious science? And isn't it also supposed to be a measurable, which is why it's called. It's why Ernest called it religious science, because we can measure. But how often are we measuring how much light we are being at any given moment? Now, because I can see the looks on some of your faces are like, and I understand completely. Being the nerd that I am and being the person who is I love words, and there's this word, and part of it because I do American Sign Language, that there's this word, but it has so many other things that it can mean. Light, for example. If light is what we're supposed to be, the I am presence, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, whatever you want to call it, the manner in which we live as that is how we let our light shine. So when we're seeing gifts, not only in others, because that's easy. It's easy, just like it's easy for someone to say, I love you, but I don't love myself. Then you don't really love them. And that's a hard pill for many people to swallow. To say, well, I love this person, but not myself. How can you give to another what you do not have within yourself? Wayne Dyer used to always say that if you take an orange and you squeeze it, how hard do you squeeze it till apple juice comes out? Never. So how do you give love to another when it's not in you to give to yourself? You really can't. Now you can say that you do. You can respond in a way that you think this is love in action. But is it? So service is how we shine. Seeing gifts in another, and like I said, seeing them within ourselves. Because if we can't start there, then I cannot expect you to put down your gun if I'm mad at you on the highway because you didn't use your turn signal. Anger is anger. Hatred is hatred, regardless of what it's directed towards. If I, as an abused child, hate anyone in my family for anything they've ever done to me, then I'm adding to the darkness in the world. I can say, I love my beloved spiritual community. I love my community, but I hate my family. Then I'm adding to the darkness rather than shining my light. Did you know that, I'm going to quote the exact number, that in the King James Bible, in the Old Testament, light is referenced 177 times. And in the New Testament, 95 times. And an interesting thing is, if you look at each subsequent translation since King James, it reduces. So as we leave the these and thous and thus fors alone, and we get to regular common everyday English, we talk about light less. We talk about grace less. If we're talking about it less, doesn't that also mean on some level we're thinking about it less? Because we talk about what we think about. So if we're talking about it less, then we're thinking about it less, then what are we talking about more? Are we feeding more darkness into the world and not even realizing it? Salvador Dali, you know who Salvador Dali is? Salvador Dali said, "Do not fear perfection. You'll never reach it." And Ram Dass says, "When you're in Detroit, you don't have to catch a bus to get there. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." How do all three of these quotes fall into alignment? One, don't fear perfection. You're never going to get there. To which Ram Dass replies, if you're in Detroit, if you're in perfection, you don't need to catch a bus to get there. If you meet the Buddha, then it means you're not being the Buddha. Kill the thought, remove the illusion that there is something external to us that needs to be brought in, brought on for us to be the I am presence. Nothing needs to be added or taken away from us. That's what it says. Nothing need be added or taken away. You are already whole, perfect, and complete. The only thing that makes the manifestation of that anything less than what we desire is our ability to hold that truth. Just because, for example, if I'm your great uncle, and I may have said this here before, I'm your great uncle, and I'm a billionaire, and I leave you $17 billion. You're now a billionaire, technically. But if your consciousness is, well, I never really knew my Uncle Ray, and I don't really deserve this money, so let me give it all away. So you don't want to be no, I would love to be a billionaire, but I don't feel I deserve it. But you're already it. You don't need to do anything to be it. It was given to you freely. Whether you knew me or not, it's yours. Can you hold that truth? Can you live from that truth and shine from that truth? Can you accept that truth? Or is it too great for us to accept? Too great for us to live from? When you were a child, and as an adult you may still do this, I don't know, because some of us have outgrown it. What did our parents tell us to do before we ate our dinner? Say grace. Say grace. To say grace. And why did we say grace? What was the purpose of it? For what? To give thanks. Anything else? To bless. To bless and to give thanks. Over our food. For our food. For our meal. At dinner time or breakfast or lunch. Why don't we say grace when we buy a new car? Why don't we say grace when we're standing at the bus and the bus comes on time? Why don't we say grace when we're standing at the bus and the bus comes late? Because I don't know what being on that on-time bus may have. If there's divine right timing, there's divine right timing for everything. So why not be grateful and bless the late bus? Because it's getting me where I need to go by divine right timing anyway, even though I may not see the gift in that divine right timing. Why do we not say grace over everything in our lives? Everything. Every donut we buy, every cup of coffee we drink. Say grace. The moment we wake up and we breathe, say grace. Now, from my former Christian background, it was, by the grace of God, you're a sinner saved by grace. Yeah. I understand the concept. But we know that there's no such thing as that type of sin. So there's making a mistake, missing the mark. Grace saves us from the idea of you're wrong. Being grateful in the midst of a oops. Grace says, let that go. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. And bless the mistake. And what do you do when you're in theater or actually it's TV and film. What do you do when you, action, cut, take two. You had a mistake. So you do a retake. Do it again. 2 plus 2 equals 9. Do it again. 7 plus 7, do it again. I applied for this job. Do it again. I want this do it again. Do it again until you are shining and moving in a graceful manner, knowing who and what you are, in accordance to divine right action. Because ultimately, we can't fall off track. Ultimately, we can deny our gifts, but the gifts are there nonetheless. Nothing we can do will ever separate us from who and what we are as the I Am Presence. It's not possible. But are we willing and able to hold a greater truth? I love the fact that Oprah has been known to say, that God can dream a bigger dream for us than we can of ourselves. I love that concept. Just the concept of it. Because it means there's some part of this thing called me where there's that higher consciousness that says, you do realize you can do this. And the lower consciousness me is, no, I can't. Oh, but you can. You can do whatever you want to do. What do you mean? Wait, whoa, time out. What are you talking about? Anything that you want to be, do, or have, you can. It's a scary thought. Anything that you want to be, do, or have, anything. That's pretty big. So let's table that for a second. Let's go back to this grace concept. Because we use this word in a variety of ways, grace. It often is said of women, I don't know that I've ever heard it referenced in men, but women, wow, my grandmother, she's growing old gracefully. What does that mean? And how often do we really think about, well, what does that mean? Or we'll watch the Olympics and we'll talk about, wow, the ice skaters move with such ease and grace. Do we? Do we move through life gracefully? Do we move through life with an ease and a flow because we know that we know that we know? How many practitioners in the room? That's a lie. Every single hand in here should have went up. There's licensed practitioners, and then there are practitioners. Everyone who thinks is a practitioner. Everyone who prays is a practitioner. The difference is, licensed practitioners are sort of like composers. So, have you ever seen sheet music? Anyone ever seen? Okay, so you have sheet music. The notes on the page for sheet music are perfect. Right? No one composes and says, I will put a mistake right here. No one composes a mistake unless they're, doing a comedy. You don't compose a mistake, and if you do, it's part of the perfection of what you're composing anyway. So the sheet music is perfect. But in my playing of this music, I may make a mistake. The practitioner's job is to set my mistake aright so that I am playing the music on the page the way it is meant to be played, helping me see this is the consciousness of perfection. This is harmony in action. So every one of us who thinks and speaks is practicing something. Are we practicing being someone who is giftless? Remember, the gift is there. But are we practicing giftlessness, meaning I don't want to see it? I don't want to know that I am a billionaire. I don't want to know that I am healthy. I don't want to know that I am this, that, or the other. How many times have people said things like, I've had this thing in my shoulder for so long that if it was to go away and the pain was gone, I don't know who I would be without it. Without the pain. Without this grudge towards my brother. Without this hatred towards Muslims. Without this towards whatever we're holding on to, who would I be? It's funny that America as a nation has a lot of healing work. That things are being brought to us to remind us and show us. And the moment something comes to us and we feel that, ooh, whatever that is, wherever that is, it's our opportunity to say, there's only one power and one presence in, as, through the entire of all creation, both visible and invisible. God, source, and it is good. Period. Not comma. Period. God, source, all of creation is good. And if there is nothing but God, then I am it. And if I am it, then so are you, and you, and you, and everyone who I see. Everyone, namaste, everyone is God in form. That means you're good, and you're good, and you're good, and you're good, because you can't be otherwise. You may not know it, so I'll know it for you. It's what practitioners do, know the truth for us. So I'll know the truth for you. And if I know that I am it and you are the thing itself, you are love itself as well, then everything in your life is moving in divine harmony and divine right action. You're already whole, perfect, and complete. Already. And how great and glorious it is to know this, and I am thankful beyond words can even express. I am so grateful that I don't have to give thanks, I can live thanks. And that's why I know that in gratitude I can release these words into the law, knowing that if I've already thought it, the mind that thought it is the mind of God. And if God is thinking it, then it's already done. So all I need to do is treat and move my feet. And so it is.
So it is.